So recently I made a video showing different ways to use ink and other colors for mark making to start your pages. And because I wanted the video to be short and punchy, I used spritzers and misters to deliver the color in a lot of the techniques without really taking the time to explain what a mister is. And I had several questions and comments saying, whoa, wait, what is a mister? And one thing I know is that if a couple of people ask, a lot more people are thinking it. So I've made this video to introduce you to Mr. Spritzer's basics. Join me, won't you? It is basically just a spray bottle. A spritzer is a spray bottle that you fill with color and water of your own. You can actually get store-bought ones, and these are by Tim Holtz. And this pack came in a variety of sepia colors. And I do like those. Tim Holtz also has a line for Ranger, and these are made with mica, very fine mica, and they are shiny. I actually did not use these as much as I thought I would, but maybe some of you are more into a shiny palette than I am. So you can buy them, but you can also make your own. And I like to do that because, speaking of palette, if you're like me, there are some colors you just use over and over in your work. I really like plummy burgundy tones and dusty blues. And I really do like these sepia tones, but if I make them myself, I can have a variety of intensities rather than just one. So you can buy empty misters. This is also by Ranger, and they're pretty much in any craft store. If you aren't going into craft stores right now, you can buy them online. And if you look below this video, I've got a couple of links that will take you there. Also, just keep your eyes open. I got these when someone was in hospital, and the hospital was giving these out. They had hand sanitizer in them, and later I just emptied them, and now I have these cool art supplies. Finally, you can get, they're a little bit bigger, but they're very effective, and these are bottles that you can get anywhere, a supermarket, big box store, Poundland, or Dollar Tree, and they might be in the travel section because it's the good size for liquids for flying now. And they're pretty cheap, and you'll get a lot out of them. So now let me show you how to make up your liquids. This part is really easy because all you're doing is taking some kind of color, adding it to water, and then loading it up. The first one I want to look at is ink. And I use a lot of ink because I use fountain pens. So I have many, many bottles and brands and colors. You can also use drawing ink or India ink. And of course I use homemade walnut ink. But let's make some with this green, which I'm not crazy about in a fountain pen, so we'll see how it works as an art supply. You really, ink is very potent. You don't need much. And I have this funky eyedropper here. You could also use a syringe or a funnel, a little baby funnel. You could pour it yourself if you are bold, and I do not really recommend that. So I've only got about a fourth of the bottle filled with ink now. Always put the top back on the ink before you move to the next step. Trust me, I found out the hard way. Now I'm going to fill up the rest of the spritzer with water, and I'm using a mister to do that because it's an easy way for me to work with water in my studio. So now, so that's about 1 part, 3 parts water to 1 part ink. I'm just going to shake that and see if it worked. Haha. And it did. And yes, I really like this a lot more as an art supply than I did as a fountain pen ink. Okay, but let's say you don't use ink. You can also use any kind of paint that you have to hand. You can use watercolor, gouache. When I do paint, tend to work with acrylic. So what I've done here is just took a little empty bottle and I added just a squish of acrylic ink, maybe about the size of a $50. And then I added a little bit of water, maybe about 2 or 3 tablespoons. And then you shake like crazy because, as you can imagine, the acrylic is going to resist the water a little bit. So you shake like crazy, and then basically what you have is now an acrylic ink. You know, it's very, very loose, like an ink. And again, now we can put this into the mister, and in this case I'm going to use a syringe. And okay, that was messy. Put the top back on. Now, let's see how this works. Again, this is acrylic and water. Okay, so now you have a different kind of mister, and the color varieties that you can create your own are pretty endless. Now, as I said at the beginning, I recently posted a video that showed a boatload of techniques for messing up your pages using ink, and primarily using misters and spritzers. So scroll back a couple and look for that, or check the links in the text below and I'll have a link to it. But as long as we have got all the good stuff out, I thought I'd go ahead and show you again ways that you can start some coverage of your page using misters and ink. I don't know if you're like me. I mean, I do this for a living, and even when I get a new journal, the white pages can be off-putting. So as soon as I do buy a new journal, I spend some time pretty much messing up every other page. And that way, when I am ready to start working, it's not nearly so intimidating. It's already messy, so I can do anything I want. A lot of ways you can do this, but let's look at it with the mister. I'm going to add, let's see. Nope, that one doesn't want to work. So let's look at this green one that we just did. Okay. It's very fine. And press it. Let's add a little bit of this red one that we just made with the acrylic ink. Now we're going to let this dry. Okay, now we're going to let this dry. And I'll have a nice, gorgeous, sexy, messy page to start working on. But I am also often asked, well, what am I going to do with this? Where do I start? Let me show you. a few pages where I did some work. This one I prepared, the sketchbook, by spritzing. This is one of the plummy colors that I liked, and I just spritzed and folded and let that dry. Then when I went on my trip and I was having coffee, I just started drawing right over it and incorporated it into the drawing. See, I did the same thing here where I pre-messed up my page with some light dark ink. Here you can actually see I've just drawn right over it, and not only does it help you get comfortable with the page, but it adds some interest to the eye. And finally, let's just look at how that works. This one's actually pretty busy with the mark making, but I'm gonna do this simple drawing of my spritzer here, right over the messy ink marks. Let's see, let's add that ink bottle too. I'm going to add a little bit of color. Right over the inky parts, just it's a water-soluble crayon. So there, you can see that I just boldly drew right over that mess, and it didn't hurt me a bit. Now, when I go home, I'm going to write on this page. I might write, this is some drawings I made when I made a video about spritzers today. And then you've got a journal page. And that is as hard and as scary as it gets. Please come back soon, because I'm going to have another video on how to use ink and spritzers and misters to finish pages that have already been completed, to finish and embellish your art journal pages. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment or ask me a question, and I would love to get back to you. I would be very grateful if you would go to my website and subscribe to my online newsletter, and you will get free stuff and downloads and pep talks and whatnot in your email every other week. Until then, get up and go make something.